Cinderella, your brand new Cinderella, opens Thursday. What's it all about?
It's about Cinderella. It's that fabulous Cinderella story. No surprises, all the same characters, everything you would expect. I'm just treating it like I did the Nutcracker. I want to make sure that this production appeals to all ages, and I mean all ages, from 3 to 103. So I'm layering in lots of interesting adventures, lots of interesting relationships, and using that fabulous Prokofiev music, which is so inspiring.
And you've messed with the story a little bit, I understand. It's not exactly the Disney Cinderella that we know.
Isn't it interesting that folklore, folk tales, etc. are relative to the various generations, and now everybody relates to any story, Cinderella, any of the stories that Walt Disney has done. That must be the definitive version. What I wanted to do with the production of Cinderella was make sure that I could use references to the Grimm stories, to the Charles Perrault stories, so it had a mixture of everything. And kids that are used to growing up on Walt Disney's version of it certainly won't be disappointed. However, they may not see dancing mice, but they'll certainly see lots of wonderful things that will appeal to them.
What are some of your sources? You mentioned Perrault, but I think I read in something that came out of the ballet that there were old Sanskrit stories from India and things like that.
You know, when I was in England and worked on a production of Cinderella before, the oldest recorded version of Cinderella is something like 2,000 years old, and it was actually in China that they found this story, this adaptation of Cinderella. So it is regarded as one of the oldest tales has been documented. And through the years, as you know, you're familiar with the Cinderella complex, Cinderella has played a major role in just shaping the idea of women and independent women, and women who think they want to be independent but don't want to be independent. So it goes on and on and on and on. You don't need to know anything about that.
What's the period? Are we looking at a modern dress Cinderella? Are we looking at an exotic Cinderella or a period piece?
It's a period piece. You may remember, Tom, in 2002 the company did a production of Cinderella, and they had new sets and costumes made, and the costumes were fabulous. The scenery, alas, was not, fell to pieces. So a little bit like Sleeping Beauty, I've got period costumes which are wonderful, and I've reinvented the scenery. So we have a little bit more minimalist scenery. It's all about lights and the exciting, using the exciting space. I've added some characters. I've added some little characters in the school who will play a little cobbler, a little dressmaker, a little shoemaker, and they're the characters that will bring Cinderella the ingredients that she needs to go to the ball and have a fabulous time.
Well, we've got a little bit of the story from you. Tell us the story.
The story of Cinderella. I'm using the influence of the birds and the spirits, which I think is a major part of folklore. And so instead of having a fairy godmother, I'm using the spirit of Cinderella's mother, which is in the Grimm story. So the ballet begins at the graveside of Cinderella's mother, and above in a tree stands the mother hovering, and she drops autumn leaves onto the grave, and Cinderella looks at the autumn leaves and begins to feel a sense of her mother being with her. And throughout the story, whenever Cinderella is in a low moment and is feeling abused and tired and frustrated, then suddenly her mother's spirit comes to her, and maybe the autumn leaves fall and begin to remind her. And finally her mother does come to her in form, and she leads her into the enchanted garden, which is where she says, "You will go to the ball, Cinderella, and I'll make sure it happens." And the other exciting part is I've added a guardian angel, a young man called Jack, who is there on Earth, and he's the houseboy, and he spends all of his time really making sure that he's got her back covered. I know that you're not a lover of mime, Tom. I know you do not like
that. No, that's not quite true.
Absolutely true. That you like it to be told in movement. It's absolutely, it's all movement. Prokofiev's music is a gift. No particular, one section of Prokofiev is terribly long in time. So it's really concise, it moves along very quickly, and it's all told in movement. The stepmother, for example, I've made her representative of a raven, a bird, a black bird, where she behaves like a bird and she focuses on her prey, which of course is Cinderella. So that's a dancing role, not a mime role, it's a dancing role. The sisters are all danced, they're accounted for. The character Jack is a very athletic dancing character. Even the father dances with Cinderella and dances with some of the other people and goes to the ball and dances at the ball with the stepmother. So it's wall-to-wall dancing. Anybody who loves the Nutcracker, I'm sure, will feel the same way about this production.
And the Nutcracker, we have different styles that are used, I think, expressively and embedded in the characters. Is that the kind of strategy you have here too?
Yes. I think there's choreographic identities for the characters here that hopefully will ring true. I think about the sisters, I wanted to make sure, I come from a long tradition of English pantomime where men wear dresses and it's all farcical and it's usually a vehicle for that person to really have their moment on stage. I wanted to try and make sure that the sisters do have a degree of some reality about them, otherwise I think they run the risk of upstaging everybody. They take over the show and it becomes a big, flamboyant comedy show. I wanted to try and make sure that that was contained, so I've insisted that the guys treat these roles very seriously. They're funny, they're very funny, and they've got a lot of license. I'm just hoping I can keep them under control so that the balance is there in the performance.
Thanks very much, Michael. We're all looking forward to it.
Pleasure, thank you.